In doing psychoanalytic criticism on a text, there are few concepts that we can use. One of them is tripartite concept. For example, in the story of the Monkey Paws, the character Mr. White shown a lot more ego and superego than the id. For example, his ego in the story is he wants to own the monkey paw, so he snatched the monkey paw away from the fireplace. So he gives some amount of money to Morris as compensation. And then there is a super ego that is shown in the story, is that he knows he can have 3 wishes after he owns the monkey paw, but not do so as he already has all he wanted. Another super ego that is shown in the story is that he tried to keep declining to her wife's request to wish for their son's revival to the monkey paw and feels terrible for his wish and hope that his wish is never fulfilled. Meanwhile, from the whole story, he only shown one id, that is, he does not want to find out of the consequences of his second wish to revive his son, so he asks for his third wish to cancel the second wish. So the next characters are Mrs. White and Herbert. Mrs. White is the wife of Mr. White and Herbert is their son. These 2 characters are the only character that's shown only id in the story. For example, Mrs. White showing her id when she wants her son to be revived, so she asks her husband to ask for the second wishes. Meanwhile, Herbert shown 2 id in the whole story. The first one is that he wants his father to wish become an emperor so that they are going to get rich, famous, happy, and so that his father not get hand back. The second id that is shown in the story is that Herbert knows that his father does not have any wishes, so he suggests that he wish to earn some money. So the last character in the story is Morris. Morris in the story only show a superego, since he wants to destroy the monkey paw due to its already create too many mischief, both to him and the previous owner when they ask for wishes.
Well, okay, thank you, Tian. And I will tell you about the significance of sexuality. So we found that there is a symptom of Oedipus complex, in which Herbert White, from the start, he doesn't like his father as much as his mother, and it will seem that he is the alpha male of the family. From the beginning of the story, Herbert and Mrs. White have agreed that he is the better man than his father. I quoted, "Never mind, dear," said his wife soothingly. "Perhaps we'll win the next one." Mr. White looked up sharply just in time to intercept a knowing glance between mother and son. A sarcasm coming from Mrs. White, who votes for her son. Furthermore, Herbert stated that in his household, Mrs. White is superior to Mr. White, and interestingly, Herbert influences his father to be independent by wishing for money so they will survive without him, so kicking him out from the house. I quoted, "If you only cleared the house, you will be quite happy, wouldn't you?" said Herbert, with his hand on his shoulder. "Well, wish for 200 pounds then. That will just do it." His father, smiling shamefacedly at his own credulity, held up the talisman as his son, with a solemn face, somewhat marred by a wink at his mother. By putting his hand on his father's shoulder, Herbert shows a dominance over him. Thus, he's giving him an order and warning him to leave the house, leave both of them behind. Meanwhile, Mrs. White once again agreed with Herbert's statement. Moreover, both Herbert and his mother accused Mr. White of taking the money for himself. They are not worried about the Monkeys Paw attacking Mr. White. I quoted again, "As I wish it twisted in my hand like a snake." "Well, I don't see the money," said his son as he picked it up and placed it on the table. "And I bet I never shall." and something horrible squatting up on top of the wardrobe, watching you as you pocket your ill-gotten gains. "It must have been your fancy, father," said his wife regarding him anxiously. Finally, after Herbert's death, Mrs. White grief led her to force Mr. White to bring back their son by using the Monkeys Paw. Because of Mr. White is subjugated by Mrs. White and Herbert's power, he has no power to stop her. In the Monkeys Paw, the Oedipus complex has happened before the story taken place, with which it depicts the powerless Mr. White, who is subjugated by Herbert's power. Herbert has taken his mother, and by using the Monkeys Paw, he wants to remove his father from the household so he can live alone with Mrs. White. Therefore, the Oedipus complex is incomplete, because Herbert has not disposed of his father, but he has taken the alpha male role and his mother's undivided love. So here, Mr. White is no longer the alpha male of the family. That is why when Herbert died, Mrs. White was so worried that she won't survive under Mr. White rule.
I'm going to tell defense mechanism. The first is selective perception, which is hearing and see only. And the example is, at the foot of the stairs, the match went out, and he paused to strike another. And at the same moment, a knock, so quiet and stealthy as to be scarcely audible, sounded on the front door. "What's that?" cried the old woman, starting up. "A rat!" said the old man in shaking tones. "A rat! It passed me on the stairs." The next is denial. "If you don't want it, Maurice," said the other, "give it to me." "I won't," said his friend doggedly. "I threw it on the fire. If you keep it, don't blame me for what happens." Denial is like problem that doesn't exist that you want. And the next is avoidance, which is you want to stay away from something. And the example is, "I won't," said his friend doggedly. "I threw it on the fire. If you keep it, don't blame me for what happens." So what happens? So in this case, he won't be blamed when there's something happen.
Selective memory. What was that you started telling me the other day about a monkey paws or something, Maurice? "Nothing," said the soldier hastily. "Leastways, nothing worth hearing." In this case, Maurice was being asked about his past experience. Displacement. Displacement is a replacement of tortured. He sat staring blankly out at the window and taking his wife's hand between his own, pressed it as he had been wont to do in their old courting days, nearly 40 years before. Here, Mr. White is able to hold his wife's hand again as the way he did when they were young. Recreation. Recreation is unacceptable thoughts or impulses. "For God's sake, don't let it in," cried the old man, trembling. "You're afraid of your own son," she cried, struggling. "Let me go. I'm coming, Herbert, I'm coming." In here, Mr. White is afraid of his own son's current condition, where he doesn't want to see his own son's face again.